Let me start by reiterating that I'm pleased that the New York prosecution is going forward. They brought these charges based on new evidence against Jeffrey Epstein, who is now a registered sex offender, and this is a very, very good thing. His acts are despicable, and the New York prosecution offers an important opportunity to more fully bring Epstein to justice. In 2008, a major newspaper described the Epstein prosecution like this. A Florida grand jury, that is, a grand jury convened by the district attorney of Palm Beach County, had charged Epstein with a lesser offense. At that time, the Epstein legal team was elated. He would have avoided prison altogether. But then the United States Attorney's Office in Miami became involved. Epstein got an ultimatum: plead guilty to a charge that would require jail time and registration, or face federal charges. And that was the week, more than 10 years ago, that Epstein went to jail. Times have changed, and coverage of this case has certainly changed since that article. Facts are important, and facts are being overlooked. This matter started as a state matter. It was prosecuted initially by the state of Florida and not by the U.S. Attorney's Office. In 2006, a grand jury convened by the state attorney, the district attorney of Palm Beach County, reviewed the evidence and recommended a single charge. And that charge would have resulted in no jail time at all, no registration as a sexual offender, and no restitution to the victim. Further, the state attorney's office allowed Epstein to self-surrender and arraigned him the following morning. Simply put, the Palm Beach State Attorney's Office was ready to let Epstein walk free, no jail time, nothing. Prosecutors in my former office found this to be completely unacceptable, and they became involved. Our office became involved. Our prosecutors, as this 2008 article recounts, presented the ultimatum: plead guilty to more serious charges, charges that required jail time, registration, and restitution, or we'd roll the dice and bring a federal indictment. Without the work of our prosecutors, Epstein would have gotten away with just that state charge. Now, many today question the terms of that ultimatum, what's called the non-prosecution agreement. A good prosecutor will tell you that these cases are complex, especially when they involve children, and even more so in 2006. I've shared with those in this room today, and will make available publicly, an affidavit filed by the career prosecutor in a civil matter related to the Epstein case. She talks about the challenges faced. She talks about the victims being scared and traumatized, refusing to testify, and how some victims actually exonerated Epstein. Most had significant concerns about their identities being revealed. The acts that they had faced were horrible, and they didn't want people to know about them. And she goes on to write that, quote, after the fact, people allege that Epstein would have been easily convicted. As the prosecutor who handled the investigation, she says in this affidavit, these contentions overlooked the facts that existed at the time. Her description of these facts are corroborated by the FBI case agent, whose affidavit I've also shared today. Thousands of prosecutors around the nation this week are weighing guilty pleas versus trials. These cases, as I said, are hard. They require a prosecutor to ask whether a plea that guarantees jail time and guarantees registration, to ask whether that plea versus going to trial, how do you weigh those two if going to trial is viewed as the roll of a dice? The goal here was straightforward. Put Epstein behind bars, ensured he registered as a sexual offender, provide victims with the means to seek restitution, and protect the public by putting them on notice that a sexual predator was in their midst. This case, people have said, was unusual. And it was. It was complicated by the fact that this matter started as a state investigation. A state grand jury brought that single, completely unacceptable charge. A state official allowed Epstein to self-surrender. And so it is unusual because it's unusual for a federal prosecutor to intervene in a state matter such as this. We've seen cases recently, different set of facts, different. I don't want anyone to say I'm comparing these cases, but we've seen other cases where state prosecutors let folks go with no sentence and people shake their heads. In this case, the federal office intervened before the plea was taken and said, stop. Because if that plea is taken at the state level, you're going to face serious federal issues. Today, we know a lot more about how victims' trauma impacts their testimony. And this, too, is important. Our juries are more accepting of contradictory statements, understanding that trauma-impacted memories work differently. And today, our judges do not allow victim shaming by defense attorneys. I have viewed the victim interviews. They're hard to watch because I know that my former colleagues, the men and women of my office, wanted to help them. I wanted to help them. That is why we intervened. And that's what the prosecutors of my office did. They insisted that he go to jail and put the world on notice that he was and is a sexual predator. Epstein's actions absolutely deserve a stiffer sentence. For years, there have been rumors of investigations in other jurisdictions. And he should be prosecuted in any state in which he committed a crime. If there are other states in which he committed crimes, if there are other states that can bring state charges, they should consider those as well. And so I absolutely welcome this New York prosecution. It is the absolutely right thing to do.
All right, let's get to that breaking news. Labor Secretary Alex Acosta set to hold that news conference amid mounting calls for him to step down over how he handled or struck a deal for a plea deal with alleged sex trafficker billionaire Jeffrey Epstein. 2008 that was. Today, Power Panel slides in former Democratic consultant Hank Scheinkoff. Radio host Kevin McCullough are here. My big question is, why do you go on live television today, wide reporting that he's not going to resign in the next little while? Why do you do that?
Why would he do that? That's extraordinary. Has he consulted with his lawyers? This man is in serious trouble, and have they told him to do this? It doesn't help the White House for sure. Maybe Kevin would agree with that.
I think there's a couple of plays going on here. I think the report could be wrong. He may very well come out and resign.
Nope, I just got confirmation.
But
it
if
came
that's
from the
not
Labor
the case,
Department.
then I think what he's got to do is then what he feels at least that he's going to do. And I respected a lot of Stirewalt's instinct. I think that he's got to feel like he comes out and plays, I did the best job I could under the circumstances at the time for the amount of information that I had. It may not wash, but he's got to, at least on some level, respond back. Dick Morris always talks about in marketing and in campaigns, the most powerful message is the one that responds to the accusation. Right. You can't sit there and not say something. So if he wants to keep his job, he's got to respond.
Hank, the president seemed to leave the door open yesterday. He said, some supportive things about Alex Acosta. He also said they're looking at a lot. He didn't say, I'm going to keep him. He said, we're looking at a lot with regard to getting rid of him.
Well, and in the Trump world, that language generally means you could be gone in a nanosecond. I mean, that may be the case. He is a hot potato. He's very difficult to keep around. And if Acosta stays, the president's going to have to ask questions about someone who really reports to him. There's no firewall between them. Well, this guy reports to the President of the United States, the cabinet officer.
And I know that you said that he's in trouble, Alex Acosta. Why do you say that?
Well, look. These kinds of inquiries don't happen with the kind of intensity that was announced by the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District unless there's a serious game going on.
So Chris Stirewalt was on with me earlier. You were talking about his comments, Kevin, and his instincts being right. There's more to this case, and it is, if you want to say politics, it's bipartisan. I mean, you heard Christine Pelosi, daughter of the Speaker of the House, come out and say some of their faves in the Democratic Party could be caught up in the sex trafficking case against Jeffrey Epstein.
And from a personal standpoint, I want the net to catch everybody that did anything illegal and immoral and grab them and do away with it. I do find it interesting that Pelosi and Schumer's primary focus is Acosta and not Epstein. Like, you heard a lot about the Labor Secretary yesterday. The media outside of Fox was not that focused on Epstein. They were very focused on Acosta.
We've partisanized everything. I mean, but here's a case where Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and liberals ought to step back and say, what about the children? Where is the justice for them?
Thank you both.